What up, everybody? This is Mike, aka Black Magus, and welcome to the Retrospective. This is a series where I or someone else, possibly, we should be having some guests who might want to reflect on some of their um, moments in retrospective to gaming. Basically, we're going to go over some history and give like a personal viewpoint of gaming from our past. Okay, so I'm old, as you can see by the gray hair. Clearly, I'm an old man. So I have a lot of retrospective on video gaming. I'm old enough to remember when the Atari 2600 was a thing. That's what we're going to talk about in this episode. The Atari 2600. Oh, man. So, created in 1972, Atari was this company put together by Norman Bushnell, and I believe his name was Ted Dabney. Don't quote me on that. These two gentlemen came together and created the company, and they put out a little game called Pong, which captured the imagination of the world. Pong was this thing that just went nuts. I remember as a kid, even years after it was created, people were in like Pizza Huts, arcades, playing the hell out of it still. It was still a fascinating game. It even appeared on Atari 2600 because it was like the thing that Atari was best known for, even though they had this new game system that they came out not too long after. Now, the Atari 2600 I remember getting when I was 6 years old. No, Atari wasn't created while I was alive. It was created before I was alive, but it was probably in its heyday when I was like at six. So the thing I remember most about the Atari 2600, the joysticks. The joysticks were like insane. You had one button. Now think about that. Um, where is my controller? That should be in my hand. Ah, here it is. See, to give you kids some perspective, um, and I think I just dropped my other controller, so but to give you some retrospective, see all these buttons. See, got a lot of buttons on the PlayStation 4 controller. A lot of buttons on the Xbox One controller. Um, the gamepad of the Wii U has a healthy amount of buttons. We had one button, and a stick. Um, that was how you controlled games on the Atari 2600. Um, it was crazy because one of my favorite games as a kid was the Atari football, and it was wild because if you wanted to spread your wide receivers out, you had to boop, bop the top of the controller to do the have the wideouts like go into motion, quote unquote, and then you run and play it. It was just so weird, but for that time, it was amazing that you can do that. The baseball, like that little pixelated guy, just gliding across the baselines to the base pads was just amazing. Even more amazing was games like Centipede or Space Invaders. We were just like awed by those games. Those games were just the shit when we were a kid. But looking back now, wow. Hey, you had to start somewhere, and considering where technology was, where TVs were, um, that was an amazing thing. And Atari is always going to have a significant place in the gaming realm because they helped establish the home gaming market. Now, a lot of people talk about the crash of 1983. I'm gonna be honest with you. As a kid, didn't really notice it because at the time, so many games were put out for Atari which is the irony of the whole thing. There's so many games that Atari had published at the time that you were still buying games well after the crash. That's pretty much the irony in it is pretty much that all of these companies and people with homebrew, all third parties, that's kind of what crashed the market. It's like everybody was just flooding the market with all of this stuff that it was just like, yo, you're just breaking yourself coming out with a bunch of crap. And there was a lot of crap, I have to admit. Even some of the stuff that we probably celebrated back in the day. Uh, if if we really paid attention, it probably was the worst thing in the world for that era. But when you're a kid, you get this video game console. Um, it was a big thing. It was a big thing to be at home with that console. It was kind of like a status symbol type of thing. So you probably didn't really give a damn what you had. You probably played it, but like this is crap. But hey, at least I got me Atari 2600 now, or something like that. You know, it was wild. It was very very wild. But yeah, there was just too much. It crushed itself under its own weight of crap. The game that a lot of people like to attribute as the straw that broke the camel's back, of course, is E.T. E.T. Was just a god awful game. Like, if anything, that's a game that I will always remember as being just dumb. I will say, like, the Star Wars game, um, Empire Strikes Back, that was awful. I don't know. See, that's the thing. People didn't really care about game design, I guess, back then. And when they got these properties and these licenses, they were just making crap as they go, I guess. I remember the Pac-Man on the Atari. It was awful. It was pretty bad how it looked in comparison to what you got in the arcade, which was mind-boggling. Very mind-boggling that you got there. But you had some gems. You had some stuff back there that you really really enjoyed. One game that we really really enjoyed back in the day, like I said, was Centipede. I remember my older sister, one of my older sisters, was just a Centipede goddess. She was just great at that game. She would hijack my Atari for hours, and while part of me was mad, the other part of little me was so fascinated at just how fucking good she was at this game. I was so envious of her. She was just like tearing through that game. It was amazing. It was amazing. Also Pitfall, which had I thought about this, um, I hadn't thought about this and didn't realize it until now. You could blame the Atari era for Activision's position in gaming because Pitfall was like a phenomenon back then, and that helped establish Activision because Activision made and published that game. Activision was making and publishing games back then. People, the company that you look at like as an evil empire now, they existed back then. Um, on a side note, I also found out that there were a couple other significant publishers and names in gaming that got its roots from Atari. This little known company that would eventually become now, I guess you could say, everybody's like um, evil empire, so to speak. Konami. They created a couple of games and actually self-published a couple of games on the Atari. And then there was this company that not too long after the Atari 2600 faded out would be would come to be known pretty well, and then sadly have their own tragic end. Sega. Sega did some publishing for the Atari, um, which was crazy. I did not know that, and I couldn't tell you what games they made back then because, as far as I know, they were only games that were published in Japan. Uh, I have to make a note to put that down below just in case someone's looking for the information. But yeah, But you know, again, going back to the crash, we didn't notice. Like I said, had so many games, and then in the period between 1983 and 1985, um, we were still on our systems, and then all of a sudden, this other Japanese company came out with some like crazy phenomenon. You know, we've got full, well, not full color, but compared to the Atari, full colored um, games with characters that had like better movement and better sound and all of this stuff. It just wowed the hell out of us. We just couldn't, you know. They had a robot that you could play games with. They gave you a gun with your system that you could shoot ducks with. You don't know who I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about Nintendo. Nintendo came in 1985, so if you were a gamer, a consumer, the crash didn't mean that much. But I'm sure if you were in the business, it just had to have been the most worst, horrible thing in the world. Um, so for I guess from my perspective, for us, the crash didn't really destroy Atari more than Nintendo pretty much made Atari as a system obsolete. But yeah, Atari did some great things. They did some really funny commercials back in the day. It was looking at some of these commercials while I was thinking about this topic. Oh my God. Uh, it was crazy. Um, by the way, they had some famous people in their commercials. Pete Rose was in a commercial with Don Knotts. And apparently Jack Black was a kid actor who did a damn Atari commercial. Who knew? Who knew? But um, by the way, advertising back in the early '80s. Oh my God, that was so bad, so bad. Ah man. But hey, it is what it is. It was the times. It was the times. Atari still will have a like real fond place in my heart. I mean, say what you will about it. It wasn't even the best system out back then. ColecoVision was probably the best system. Um, but didn't matter because Atari just was all the rage. I mean, they they just it was the name. It was they had so many. You know, again, the thing that killed it probably was something that also made it so great was that you had so many games to pick for, even though they were sloppy, clumsy. You know, I'm thinking back to some of the games, the boxing, combat, you know, with the tanks and all of that. Oh man, it was fun, and it helped get us kind of addicted to the idea of having a gaming console. And honestly, without that, I don't know where Nintendo would have been. And fast forwarding over 20, you know, 20, 30 years later, don't know if we would have an Xbox One, PS4. Um, you know, gaming computers, you could game on computers, but would gaming on computers even be that big without Atari making the idea of playing a lot of games at home a big deal? Who knows? Maybe it would have been eventually. I don't know, but I know for consoles, Atari definitely did spark that love, and you know, who knows where we would be now, at least from my perspective. But that is the retrospective for today. Um, if you have any suggestions for any systems, games, we will be talking about individual games as well. My God, once I start down the road of talking about just games, be careful, people, because so many games that I can think of myself. And I'm sure um, once I start getting some of my friends involved, they can probably talk your head off about certain games too. This is about a 15-minute video. I can't even imagine what it would be once I start to reflect on The Legend of Zelda or the first Final Fantasy. That's going to be crazy. But like I said, if you have any suggestions for games, consoles, uh, it'll if you make the suggestion, I'm just gonna let you know right now. For me, it's something that I have to have played. If I haven't played it, I'll see if someone I know has and see if they want to give their opinion on it. But just make suggestions for games, consoles, different topics within gaming that you want to talk about. You could send all of that information to wiseguygse at gmail.com. It'll be below in the description. You could also tweet us at wiseguygse. Uh, and of course, leave just suggestions in the comments section. We always appreciate that, and feel free to like and subscribe, and look for more of the retrospective and other great content on Wise Guy Gaming, Sports, and Entertainment. Okay, guys, I'm Mike, and I'm out of here. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. Peace.